Again, thanks for stopping by for our Rockets season preview. 10 points on the upcoming season. I'm Matt Weiner. Greg Anthony's right there. This is Brian Shaw. We'll hear from these guys throughout the show. The 2019-2020 version of the Rockets is all about a match made in Houston. To skeptics, the pairing of the Beard and Russ may feel more like fantasy basketball than a fantasy come true. But the Rockets have loaded up in the backcourt with two of the last three league MVPs who've known each other since they were kids and are both still just 30 years of age. Here's Russell Westbrook on some of the skepticism about the pairing.
Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting to me. I think that there are other duos around the league that got together.
Yeah.
Kawhi and Paul, LeBron and Anthony, Kevin and Kyrie. But as soon as me and James got together, it was quickly.
Yeah, the narrative was quick.
Negative. And to me, I think it's very, very interesting. But I do think it's I'm always looking at it as a blessing. And it's great because I always look at it as if there's constantly things said about you in the media negatively. I feel like it's a positive. I don't know how I
use it as fuel. Yeah,
it's just a positive because I think it's so great because myself or James must be doing something very, very great, or unheard of, to make you think that we cannot play together.
It's a great way to look at it. Yeah,
and I think it's amazing because we're so comfortable with each other and how we play the game and what I'm able to bring to the game, what he's able to bring to the game, and it's something that we don't even worry about because we know what we're capable of doing.
Westbrook there with our Allie LaForce. So, first impressions. How well will this partnership work?
I think it'll work very well. First of all, they have trust. They go back from, junior high school, middle school, high school. They played together in OKC before. And that familiarity that they have, that trust that they have with one another, especially when the other one is off the ball, is something that they haven't had for a while. And I think that they'll rely on that. Whenever you put two MVPs together, guys that are willing to do whatever it takes to make their team better, they have that as well. And the fact that Russell Westbrook accumulates triple-double after triple-double, as well as Harden, who can do the same thing. They're both willing passers. They both score at a high level. I think it's going to be a great tandem, and the league's going to have to watch out.
No doubt about it. And, people are wondering whether or not it works. I think it's going to work brilliantly from this standpoint also. Russell provides them what they lacked the season ago. His athleticism, his ability to make plays without the basketball. That's going to be critical for their overall success. They would lose a lot of possession battles last year because they just didn't have enough athleticism. When you factor in his ability to defensive rebound and create opportunities in the open floor, that's where he differs from, say, Chris Paul. And the other thing, his game is more complementary to James's when James has the ball, because he can catch lobs. He can go and attack the offensive glass. When he gets those swing passes off of double teams, he can attack and also make the plays. And as great a player as Chris Paul is, his level of athleticism, I keep harping on that, but it's going to be critical to their success. And Then you factor in that the top of the West, while it's going to be very deep, you don't have an all-time team right now like you did a year ago with Golden State the last few years. So now I think it actually sets up better for Houston potentially if Mike D'Antoni can figure out the balance with those two in terms of maybe staggering minutes or however he tends to utilize that rotation. But I think that duo could be extremely potent in that Western Conference.
There's maybe no other combination of endurance and athleticism, explosiveness like Russell Westbrook in the league. You mentioned the athleticism. What else is he in particular bringing to this roster?
Well, they weren't particularly a good defensive rebounding team, and that's something that he does extremely well, to Greg's point. And so that, as well as his length and athleticism, his versatility defensively. Houston is a team that switches 1 through 5 defensively, and so where Chris Paul may have gotten taken advantage of in the post, they won't be able to do that as easily with Russell Westbrook. And in his slashing ability, and one thing that people sleep on with him, he's a great offensive rebounder. And the Houston Rockets are one team, and I think that they teach rebounding from the corners when three-point shots come up, go up. P.J. Tucker, as well as Russell Westbrook, are underrated offensive rebounders because they play the small forward and the guard position, and that's something that's going to allow them to have second opportunities and be able to pick up because they're switching anyway.
You know, one of the things that people pointed to immediately in terms of differences between the Russ and the Rockets is obviously three-point shooting. The Rockets, 3 years in a row now, have set league records for threes made in a season. But in Russ, they're bringing in, statistically, the worst volume three-point shooter in NBA history. What does that mean to their offensive approach?
Well, first and foremost, what it has to be is Westbrook's shot quality has to improve. I really felt like because of the pressure in OKC and the lack of shooting, he took a lot of ill-advised, difficult shots that I think when you play with more talent, you don't have to take as many poor shots.
Right.
And I think his overall shot quality has got to improve. And I think he's even talked about it. You know, a lot of those threes he would take weren't space rhythm threes. They were off the dribble. They were under duress. I think his shot quality improvement improves his efficiency. And I think also, if I'm Mike D'Antoni, I don't want to have him become just a three-point shooter. I want him to be dynamic. To Brian's point, allow him to dominate the game inside the three-point line, and James can dominate it outside the three-point line. That way they complement each other a little bit more, and I think he becomes a much more impactful player because he's more efficient.
And one thing will be different as well, the shooting that he has now with this Houston Rockets team, he didn't have last year in the OKC.
They've not been a good three-point shooting team for years.
Exactly. Right? And so what it's going to allow when he does get in pick and roll play or he is attacking in transition and the defense has to be aware and stay closer to the perimeter shooters that they have on the Rockets team, now he's going to be able to get in the lane and finish inside. And then when they do come in to collapse on him, he has those shooters now that he has confidence to be able to hit that are going to knock down those open looks.
You know, they've already talked about staggering their minutes a little bit during the regular season. We saw that with Chris Paul as well. And there's also maybe a kind of a fire and ice approach in terms of pace and play. The Rockets have not been a very fast-paced team, 26th in the league last season in pace of play after being all the way up to third 2 seasons prior. Russ can push the basketball, obviously, maybe change that equation.
I think he does. And I think if you go back to that first year with Chris Paul, that was the year where they were 13th in pace. I think that's about where they want to be. If they're middle of the pack in terms of pace because of how many times Russ and Russell, I should say, and James are going to get to the free throw line, I think they're going to be fine. I don't think they want to become the fastest team in the league. But if they get to the middle of the pack in terms of pace, with that talent, they're going to be potent. They're going to be very difficult to deal with from a defensive standpoint.
And imagine, in terms of Russell Westbrook pushing the ball and putting that pressure on the defense, now there's no way that, you have to pick your poison in terms of what you want to do. And so him putting that pressure on when Harden's breaking you down in the half court and the fact that their pace will improve because of Westbrook, that's going to mean more offensive opportunities for them on that end. And as potent as they are offensively, just imagine them having more opportunities now to score on you. It's going to be tough to beat.
Well, time will tell whether this is a better basketball team than the Chris Paul, James Harden version of the Rockets. But one thing has definitely changed, and you alluded to it, and that's the Western Conference. Because of some of the departures, the injuries, the Warriors are a very different team. It's a lot more wide open than it's been. How much more, doable is the path to a Western Conference championship for this team?
Well, I think it's more doable in terms of, I think everybody looked at the Golden State team and said, wow, they're going to be tough to beat when it gets down to it. And now they're different. There's no KD. Klay Thompson's, we don't know when he's going to come back. Same thing with the Clippers with Paul George. And so I think the pressure, there's less pressure on them. I think they can feel a little bit more comfortable in their chances because their team is still pretty much intact. And they've added Russell Westbrook. So, but the middle of the pack of the West, the top 8, teams are going to cannibalize each other night in and night out. And so I don't think the win totals for all the teams will be much different than they were a year ago because it's going to be more competitive. But I think that Houston has to feel pretty good about the team that they're bringing back with the addition of Westbrook.
And I would go a step further with that. I think it's going to come down when we get to postseason matchups because of that. Because before with Houston, there was only one team that they worried about. Now you're going to have 5, 6, 7 teams that could beat you in a 7-game series. I mean, the depth is there and the quality of the depth and the fact that when Golden State now, even though they're going to still be really good, they're not going to be overly dominant. That gives everybody else more confidence. And so now when I'm playing you in that second round, I'm saying, man, if we get by this one, we could get to the finals. Like your mindset, it really does change. And so while they don't have to deal with that 800-pound gorilla, in a lot of ways, it could be more difficult because now you might, in the first round, face a team that could potentially knock you out, and it wouldn't be an upset just because of the depth of that conference.
We'll get into the rest of the roster in the next segment, but bottom line this for me, the addition of Russell Westbrook, swapping out Chris Paul for Westbrook, does it make them a more viable Western Conference championship contender than they were a year ago?
Yes, I think it absolutely does.
And I have to agree with that.
All right, we'll nail these guys down on win totals a little later on. We continue on with our team preview of the Rockets. Lots more to get to. We've gotten into the one major change, but much of the good about
at Madison Square Garden. Harden, step back, nothing but nylon. Inside layup and alone. Step back. James Harden for three. Another one. He just makes it look so easy. For the slam to seal the deal. 61 for Harden.
James Harden heated up Madison Square Garden on a January night with 61, a Rockets team record, and tied with Kobe Bryant for the most by a visiting player at MSG ever. But Harden and Russ will need plenty of help, of course, throughout the season. They retained much of their depth, the Rockets did, while addressing the roster defensively with additions like Thabo Sefolosha and Tyson Chandler. So the question for the two of you is, who is the most important non-MVP on this roster moving forward?
Well, I have a number of guys, and it's their bigs at the five spot. Can Tyson Chandler, can Nene, and can Capella stay healthy? And I think if they can do that, the sky is the limit for this team. But as much as they're going to be running, as pace is going to pick up, they've added Ben McLemore, who's extremely athletic. They can play that 2-3 spot, that they can also shoot the ball from the outside. But for me, it's can their bigs stay healthy throughout the season?
I think that's going to be critical for him. I think the biggest beneficiary, though, of having Westbrook come over is P.J. Tucker. I really feel like, from a defensive standpoint, again, as great a defender as he is, he's a guy that, based on your system, he can be exploited at times. I don't think that you can exploit them now the way that he at times would have struggles. And we talked about their lack of defensive rebounding. I think that's an area where, as good as he is, he could hurt you in the past with that roster that didn't have the athleticism. Now that they have it, I think it really helps his game overall, which in turn helps this Rocket team. But their depth, while we said they brought a lot of those guys back, they're going to need a different type of impact. So the guys like Sefolosha, they're going to have to get more defensive oriented the way they were 2 years ago.
Right.
When they had to, remember, they lost. They lose a lot of guys like Ariza
and Ba Mute left, and they got much worse.
And that's what the difference was from year to year. Now I think with their roster as presently constructed, they're able to kind of offset that. But adding Westbrook again helps everybody. His athleticism. He's going to eat up possessions for you with his ability to rebound a basketball. He's also a better defender than people maybe give him credit for. And I think if he's more disciplined on that end, I think this Rockets team is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
How about the expectations for Clint Capella, who was very productive last season when he was there? He had a thumb injury, took him out for part of the year, and then was kind of taken out of the Golden State series.
Well, that's the thing. The regular season shows you who you can be, but the postseason shows you who you are.
Right.
And they were able to game plan him and took away a lot of his ability. The bottom line for me, I didn't think he was tough enough in that series. I just felt like Golden State was able to kind of get him off his game and didn't allow him to have the impact on the interior. And so if you're a coaching staff in the front office, when you sit down with him, you've got to get him to understand, we need you to be more of a physical, impactful player than you were in the postseason. Forget the regular season. We're going to win enough games, but it's about what can you do for us in the postseason. He's got to get back to that level for this team. Ultimately, to Brian's point, he might be the most important guy because he's that third guy that has a chance to be an all-star caliber player who didn't play like it in the postseason. He's definitely going to have an impact.
Averaged about 16 and 12 last season. Austin Rivers is back for another go-around with the Rockets. What is his role now behind those two superstars and behind Eric Gordon, or part of that rotation generally?
Well, he just has to be solid in his minutes out there on the court. There can't be a drop-off when he comes in. But, they're going to be staggering Russell and James, and so he'll be playing with one or both of those guys when he's in the game. But, just knock down shots, play tough defensively, use his speed and his youth and his athleticism as well to mesh with this team and bring them together. And if he can do that, their bench unit will be pretty solid.
And the other guy that I think really benefits is Eric Gordon, because remember last year he got pressed into having to play a little bit more lead guard at times, and the minutes got kind of heavy. Now he's going to always be out there with a force, either it be Westbrook or Harden, and I think that's where he's really at his best as a complementary scorer. He's terrific at that. When he has to be the primary guy, the primary focus, I think it gets tougher because the defense can kind of focus. But you got to expect that Russ is going to play basically the whole season, should stay healthy. And if that's the case, I think Eric Gordon could have a monster season for this team.
Gordon could be a good complement not just to Russ or Westbrook, but occasionally I would imagine to both of them.
Yes.
I would assume you're going to see a lot of three-guard lineups from Mike D'Antoni.
Most definitely. And, you know, one of the most underrated aspects of Eric Gordon is his ability to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket. And, you know, people think of him as just a perimeter catch and shoot, spot up three-point shooter, but that was one of the strengths of his game, being able to put the ball on the floor. When defenses are closing out to him, he was able to attack their closeouts. And so, you know, for this team, you know, going back to Clint Capella, Golden State, you weren't the only one that thought that he wasn't tough enough. Obviously, Golden State felt that as well.
Yeah.
But I think what will open up for him is the fact that Russell is going to be putting so much pressure on them, pushing the ball down the floor. He's going to get out in transition and be finishing a lot. And if he can knock down his free throws when he does get fouled, when he's rolling to the basket, because everybody's going to be out on their shooters, that's going to do nothing but help this team.
I'm hearing a theme here that Russell Westbrook's presence is going to help a lot of guys.
Yeah, that's what great players tend to do. They tend to make everybody better.
MVPs sometimes have that impact on